Welcome back. A big twist in the case of 4 murdered Idaho students found dead in their home late last year. And lawyers for Donald Trump appealing right to the Attorney General Merrick Garland to close federal investigations into the former president. Let's bring in our legal panel to discuss this. Attorney at Strolla Law, Corey Strolla, and distinguished professor at Touro University, Thane Rosenbaum, along with our special guest today, political analyst Mark Halperin. We appreciate you being here. Thane, I want to kick it off with you. Talk to us a little bit about what happened with, again, the Idaho murder case this weekend. We know the parents of the suspect, Brian Koberger, secretly testifying about a woman that was found dead in Pennsylvania, as well as a twist in all of this.
So, look, the evidence so far in connection with the Idaho case is based on some DNA, which, everyone who watches police procedurals expects to see some DNA evidence on the knife, cell phone data in connection with him apparently being in the neighborhood, in the vicinity, and video surveillance on the day of the crime. We don't have really any motive for the crime. But it does raise a question of, up until now, what kind of a criminal record did he have? And so obviously this new twist in Pennsylvania raises the possibility that he had been involved in something else, which at this point, is still very important because, he didn't even plead not guilty. He stayed silent, which is, not totally uncommon, but somewhat unusual. And so, the circumstances are still very much a mystery.
Corey, can any of that evidence be entered into the Idaho case?
They're probably going to have hearings on it and ask the judge for permission. Every state has different laws on prior bad acts. Some even have relevancy in terms of time period. Like in federal court, after 10 years, you have to get specific authority. So it is always a very distinct possibility any prior arrests, convictions, or accusations could be brought up in court against you.
And Mark, remind our viewers about the plea in this case. I think he refused to enter a plea when it came to these Idaho murders and didn't actually speak at all during this.
Yeah, look, his counsel, I think, has done a decent job. I think the prosecutor should be commended. This is a complicated case. And so far, I think they've done a good job of keeping people's confidence in the way they've handled it. No obvious mistakes that I've seen, but there's plenty more to come. And the problem they're going to have is there are going to be twists and turns and questions, as was said earlier, about motive.
This is such a fascinating case. We could certainly take up the whole segment on this, but I want to pivot to this for a moment. Former President Trump's lawyers going right to the top, to the Attorney General's office. They're looking to speak about the special counsel investigations into the former president's conduct. Thane, what kind of legal path does this follow?
Look, they have every right to say, you've been investigating my client. He's already got a state criminal case here in New York. He's got something possibly pending in Atlanta. You appointed a special prosecutor. This special prosecutor seems to be very active. The one appointed in connection with similar documents issues in the home of President Biden doesn't seem to be very active at all. What plans do you have for my client? At some point, I think it's appropriate to say, put up or shut up. What do you actually have? And is it a time, because my client is running for president in the state criminal case, it appears as if in the very middle of the primaries, he'll be having to defend himself in a criminal misdemeanor charge. What does he have waiting here in Washington, D.C.?
Corey, what do you think the response will be?
That's an interesting question. I think every political and lawyer around the country will have a different answer on this. I think the answer is going to be, who knows? And I hate to give you that one, but we also don't even know if he's going to be able to remove this case to federal court because that motion just got filed and is pending as well. So I think we're going to see a lot of twists and turns in this case, and we have just begun the spin. Not only Washington's going to put on it, but the Trump party and the Democratic Party.
Mark, I want to get your reaction too. And I mean, at this point, it's worth a try, I guess.
Look, most prominent, well-financed potential defendants ask for such meetings. They often get them. I think in this case, because Hunter Biden's lawyers got a meeting, it's going to be very hard for the Justice Department not to give a meeting. Now, the former president asked for a meeting with the Attorney General himself not the line prosecutors, not the deputy. That's a tougher choice. I'm not sure Merrick Garland wants to sit down with Donald Trump's lawyers since he's trying to keep this case a little bit at arm's distance, although the final decision does rest with him.
Okay. Thane, in terms of the former president's legal battles, what are you outlooking at this point?
You know, Kimberly, I'm sure I've said on your show before, I thought the one case that he was most vulnerable on was the obstruction of the evidence in the Mar-a-Lago documents case, not the removal of the documents. I had never thought that he had legal jeopardy there. I think the Presidential Records Act covers that. But this idea, which came out again today, that when the National Archives said, do you have any more? And that his attorneys represented that he didn't. And then, in fact, it may appear that his lawyers then moved things around. This question of mishandling and obstruction of justice was, to me, he was much more vulnerable there than he was in Atlanta. In New York, to me, the case is ridiculous. I've always thought it was ridiculous. I don't understand how they were able to elevate a misdemeanor into a felony. But I do think that there is a question of obstruction of justice. And I wish that at least they would bring that, because it would at least show that they're not just dragging this out to destroy his presidential campaign prospects, but that they actually have a criminal case against him.
Yeah. All right, Corey Strolla, Thane Rosenbaum, we have to leave it there, unfortunately. Great to have you here.